Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kayla. I like to talk about books, book reviews, reading vlogs, song advice, fairy, lots of stuff like that. So if any of that interests you, then please subscribe. Today I'm going to be talking about some of the books I will be reading this spring, kind of a spring reading list. So if you're interested in that, then definitely keep watching. I got kind of a slower reading start to the year because I was sick, my baby was sick, and now I'm pregnant again, so I was really not feeling well, but I'm kind of feeling better now, so I'm so excited to get into some more of the books that I've been excited about. A lot of these, a ton of these are recommendations, some of them from people who watch my book reviews, people like you. Let's get into some of the books that I'm so excited to read this spring. And the first one on my list is actually Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson, and this is like a series, I think, and I've been recommended it several times, so I will be checking out the first book. I also want to check out the Kingkiller Chronicles, which is another one that has been recommended to me several times because I'm kind of looking for a new fantasy vibe, a fantasy series, especially with A Song of Ice and Fire not coming back for a while. I don't think House of the Dragon is even going to be back until later this year. Like, I need a little content to consume. I'm not sure if I'm going to start with Mistborn though. I think I'm actually going to start with the Kingkiller Chronicles. Name of the Wind, I think, is the first book, and I'm very excited. I don't know a ton of details, but I don't want to know a lot of details. If it's not great, it's not great. If it's not my cup of tea, it's not my cup of tea, but I love the idea of having like a little series ahead of me. I think the Kingkiller Chronicles might only be like 2 books or 3 books right now. That's okay. I'm still really excited. The next book that I'm actually very excited about is also another recommendation, which is Shark Heart, and I'm not normally a big love story romance novel reader. It's by Emily Habeck. I don't know. I've not read anything by this author. This is definitely not something I would typically pick up, but somebody recommended it to me that I know. I believe it's about this couple who gets married, and then shortly after getting married, I think the husband gets a diagnosis that he's turning into a shark. It's like a thing that happens in this book. So it's a little bit of like almost like magical realism or something, where this book is, I think, otherwise set in basically our type of world, but some people like get sicknesses where they turn into another animal, I guess. So in this book he starts turning into a shark, and I think the whole premise is how they navigate that, etc, etc. I don't know what happens at the end of that, so I'm actually really intrigued. What happens when he turns into a shark? Do they cure him, or what's gonna happen? So I'm like not normally a big romance novel reader, but I'm very excited to read that. I think it could be an interesting metaphor for like some of the changes people undergo during marriage throughout all of those years. So I think that could be kind of a fun way to explore that as well, because let's be honest, people are going to change after you marry them in ways you didn't expect, because things like having kids, growing older, like those naturally change you. So I'm just really intrigued to see that, to read that. The next book that I'm so excited to read this spring is actually a book I got for my husband for Christmas, and he just read it on his most recent trip to China and recommended it so highly. He was like, I thought I would watch a movie on the plane, I thought I would do work on the plane, but I couldn't put this book down, so I read it the whole way there basically, other than sleeping. So I was like, oh, okay, I should definitely read it. I already knew when I got it for him that I would probably want to read it because I love Bill Bryson, and it just, the pages that I read seemed so funny and so just classic Bill Bryson. So I definitely knew I wanted to read it, but after his rave review, he was basically like, I hadn't read anything I was passionate about in a while, and this like reignited my spark for reading. And I was like, okay, that's pretty high praise for a book, like when you get the right book at the right time and it gives you that spark. So I think I'm gonna read this. Maybe I'll read it next time I travel somewhere, because it's like a travel-based book, but I might just read it after Shark Heart because it seems so, I'm like very excited for it, because I think this is probably going to be the next book that I read on my list, and maybe then I'll follow it with this one. We'll see. Because I just finished Reykjavik, which was really, really good. And by the way, if you haven't, go check out my review of Reykjavik that I just finished. And yeah, I absolutely love that book. I guess by the time this is posted, I'll be on to something else. So like I said, I've got these kind of a magical realism, kind of a fiction travel Bill Bryson book. And then I'm very excited to get into some fantasy series. I think Kingkiller Chronicles is first, and then maybe I'll try Miss Mistborn. We're gonna see how I feel. It's kind of like a day-to-day vibe thing, but I think after these two is when I'll start one of those. I'm typically a read one book at a time kind of a person. So the next book that I really am excited to read this spring is called Hannah's Daughters by Marianne Fredrickson. And this book sounds so intriguing. It is like historical fiction kind of, because I think it takes place partially in the past, and I believe it takes place in Sweden. It takes place like partially in the past and like follows multiple generations of women within this same family, and that just as a concept intrigues me. I don't really know much else about it other than that sounds fantastic, so I'm really excited to read that. That's definitely I think it's gonna be a good spring vibe too, with all of the like multi-generational, intergenerational dynamics. I just feel like it's gonna be a really good spring vibe, so I'm excited to read that. I'm also debating reading Even If Everything Ends by Jens Lillestrand, and I believe this is like kind of a little bit of a book based on like climate change like scenarios, and that sounds really interesting as well. So I think I'm throwing that also on my spring reading list as something probably to be tacked on the end. I don't know, that just sounds like such a spring vibe. I again don't know a ton of the details except that it takes place in a little bit the future, I think, where like the world has changed a little bit more. I don't know. It just sounds intriguing, and if I don't like it, I don't like it. That is probably gonna be it for my spring reading list. There's definitely a few new releases this summer that I'm very excited about, and I'll probably talk about those in a separate dedicated video, but these are some of the books I'm going to be reading this spring. You let me know below, what are some of your books that you're excited to read this spring? Do you kind of read season to season? Because I definitely read very seasonally based, things that are like the vibe of the season. I have to pick the vibe other than maybe new releases. So yeah, you let me know below. Do you do that? Do you not do that? What are you excited about? I would love to hear it. But anyway, that's gonna be it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Like, subscribe, all the good stuff, and I will see you later.